we planted this indoors in a 4-inch pot in early April, first week of April. Um, at the same time, while it was growing indoors, I usually, was put in front of the window just so it, gets some sunlight during the day. Um, Outdoors in our pumpkin patch, I would have a little enclosure, a little hoop house, if you will. It's kind of like a little greenhouse, Emily. And in the soil, I put about a 40-foot gutter cable on a thermostat. So I heated the soil. And we live in Maine. So sometimes it snows in May. Sometimes we get a frost or freeze in May. But the soil inside this little greenhouse had a beautiful little microclimate just for the pumpkins to grow. So I used to enjoy it where I go outside and I put the pumpkin plant in the soil. And I think it was in late April we did it this year, probably last week in April. It would be 40 degrees out, and I'd open the little plastic in the greenhouse and I put my hands in the soil and it felt like beach sand. It was so nice. And it really allows the roots to thrive and grow well. So it's going to live inside that little, I think it was about a 6 by 8 foot hoop house or greenhouse until probably the last week in May. That comes off, and then the pumpkin's free to grow. The plant's ready to go.
When you told me about how fast they gain weight, I was shocked.
So the pumpkin was born, it was only about the size of a quarter, Emily, at the beginning underneath the flower. And I can send you a picture. It was pretty cool. And the flower's maybe, 6 inches tall or so. And that's when it all starts. And it really starts putting on weight right around day 30, which would take it to about, late July. And when you ask, how fast do they grow? It's in that window between late July and mid-August where they're putting on over 50 pounds per day.
Has being a meteorologist helped you in this game at all? What benefits are there to knowing the weather?
You're not the only one that's asked that. It's funny, just working at the news station, they say, well, Charlie, of course you have an advantage. You're a meteorologist. But I don't know if I have much of an advantage. I mean, obviously I forecast the weather every day. So that might be a small advantage. But one of the things I really tried to focus in on this year was the dew point, Emily. So over the years, I've always tried to water about 150 gallons per plant per day. And I just kind of stuck to it. 150 gallons of water per plant per day. And in the last few years, I started realizing that I might be overwatering, say when the dew point's 65, the soil is just, or 75, it's just not drying out. Say the soil stays wet on humid days. But in Maine, we get those dry days as well, where the dew point might be down into the 50s, and we're getting a lot of evaporation. So those days might get more of 200 gallons of water.
Okay, so what was the big weigh-in?
We've never had two pumpkins at the very end. We always lose them for some reason. They might crack, or if they crack, the air gets in, they start rotting. They're just like a tomato, Emily. If they get too much rain, sometimes they'll split, and then it's game over. But this year I ended up with two. It was really exciting. So one of our fairs in Maine called Cumberland Fair, we took our smallest pumpkin to, and it weighed 2,070 pounds. And we were fortunate to win the prize that day. But 2 weeks later, we took our biggest pumpkin to the Damariscotta Pumpkin and Regatta Weigh-Off. And that was an exciting one because it broke the state record and it weighed 2,365 and a half pounds.
How did you transport the pumpkins?
Oh, it was hairy. It was not good. I built a lifting tripod out of 4x4s. Again, the inventive part of, trying to be a scientist. And I put a thread rod through the top, and I put a chain at the top of that. And I hang a bunch of straps coming down from it. And then the straps will get under the pumpkin, and I'll lift it up with a chain fall. So the pumpkin lifts up in the air. Underneath this tripod, and I back my trailer underneath, and then I'll pop it down. It was just a slow ride to the Weigh-Off after that, and that's it. Yeah.
And then what happens to the pumpkins after this? Is it just like a gazillion pumpkin pies? Where do they go?
So at the festival, the fun thing that they do is they actually have a regatta. It's where they hollow out some of the pumpkins, flip them upside down, and then they become boats. There's a paddle division, there's a motorized division. So they'll race around these buoys, and there's a few heats. So that's one use of the pumpkins. They actually they float them down the river and race them. Another one is at the festival. We're talking about Damerscott Pumpkin Festival. They will have 70 giant pumpkins at local businesses along Main Street. And it's a pretty eclectic area with a lot of great artists. So the artists will paint and carve the pumpkins. And it's always fun to see what the artists will do. I mean, the carvings they do are absolutely amazing. They're so beautiful. I'd urge folks to look it up online or visit some year, um, because what they do with the pumpkins is just miraculous sometimes. Also at the festival, they'll have a pumpkin drop. They'll take the biggest crane in Maine and they'll drop 1,000-pound pumpkin on top of a car. They'll drop it sometime. Last year they did one on a. This year they're going to do one on a pool. They'll drop it into a pool. And they do one actually first for the kids. They'll drop a pumpkin and it splats on the ground, and the kids can go out and pick up all the seeds, and then they can go and plant them next year. It's kind of a kid thing.
Yeah. Do you keep the seeds from this year's pumpkin?
If any of your listeners want a seed, if I have enough, I'm happy to. Just have them send me an email. We'll definitely be drying out the seeds, and they're great genetics, and they'll grow big ones next year. So I'm going to trade them with some of the clubs around New England and really around the entire United States. I've already had seed requests from all over. So yeah, awesome. That's part of the fun of it as well.